what you were doing at the age of 12. For me, I was fighting for my life. I had my first brain surgery when I was 12 years old. I was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, which is a condition in which the brain fluid in the brain cavity gets stuck without a mechanism to drain it or to be reabsorbed into the body. And so it builds up and causes pressure and brain damage. In fact, at the point of my first surgery, I'd been given 2 days, or it was done 2 days before I was going to go blind or go into a coma. And I watched my mother knock doors, doctor to doctor, seeking an opinion, because my diagnosis did not come easily. I was not able to walk at that time. I wasn't able to sit down. I had a double vision, and my mental and cognitive functions had been impaired. What I needed to do was survive. And I remember that this was just a physical pain. The mental pain was unimaginable. I was just a child, just dealing with small social issues in school. And now I was trying to fight for my life. This got particularly harder when a child who was sleeping next to me died in hospital, and I had to tell the nurse of this. I couldn't help but think of death. I didn't know what to do. And I remember there was a family friend who brought me a book. It was called The Prayer of Jabez. I don't know why he was bringing a 12-year-old this book, but I'm glad he did. Jabez was a man in the Bible who was named Pain. His name meant pain. And so he said a prayer to God and asked God to bless him, to enlarge in his territories, that God would hold his hand and keep him from harm. I didn't know what a territory was, but I held on to these words, and they helped me get through my first surgery. 3 years later, I was back in my doctor's office, hearing the same words that I'd had before. I was going to go for another brain surgery. I'd already suffered the wrath of my school nurse not believing my symptoms and almost had a collapsed lung because of how the disease had progressed. My mother was in despair. She kept asking the doctor if there was any medication that I would be given instead of having a brain surgery. There was none. And I had my second surgery and went back to school. A year later, I was back at the doctor's office. This time, he told me that he was going to drill 2 holes in my skull and leave them open, so that the next time this would happen, I would have less symptoms or suffer less than I had before. There was hope, but at the same time, there was a despair of thinking of death through the surgery. I went through it, and I went back to school. I wasn't the same anymore, because I learned to fight battles that no one else could see. I learned to question why this was happening to me. And 2 years later, when I was in Form 4, waiting for my KCSE exams, one of the most important exams in someone's life, 2 weeks before my exams, my doctor told me that we would have another brain surgery. This time, I was broken. I was broken because I had tried so much to live normally. I had integrated myself in school. I didn't want this chronic illness to define who I was. But here it was, trying to snatch away everything I had worked for. I didn't understand why it was happening at that time, and I thought life was quite unfair. But I showed up. I went to hospital, had my brain surgery, and 4 days before my KCSE exams began, I was discharged from hospital. This time, more broken than ever. I told my mother to go to school to cancel my exam registration. She went to school, but she was told it wasn't possible. I had to show up. And during my first paper, I collapsed. Woke up at Nairobi Hospital Emergency Center with a police officer standing next to me with my unfinished papers. And I did my papers in hospital. At that point, I was told that my neurosurgeon was not in the country. I was alone. And so I remember calling God and telling him, I know you have the memo. People have been telling you about this. But I'm here not to complain about my situation. I'm here to strike a deal with you. I was going to write my name and answer the questions I knew, and I told him he was going to do the rest of the questions. That wasn't a prayer out of faith. It was a defeatist prayer. I'd given up. So much so that even when I tried to read, I didn't have the energy to, and I gave up. I did my papers, finished my school, and I started to farm with my father because I didn't think I had any chance at having a professional career. And so when 3 months passed, and I got a phone call from the school secretary asking me if I had checked my results, I told her no. What was there to check? I'd already given up. And so she begged me to drive to school. She told me, just come. We will talk when you get here. And by the time I got to the gate, I found people waiting to celebrate with me because I'd passed my exams. I did not understand how that happened. It was a bittersweet feeling because I'd closed a door that I thought I was done with. And now you're telling me I should go back and open it? And at this point, a few days later, I realized that there's one thing that happened. There was grace that had been given to me. And I decided from then on that I was going to show up for each and every challenge that was thrown at me at any point of my life. I enrolled in university, did my undergraduate, did my master's, and participated in the community just like I was expected to. And while I was in university, I had 2 brain surgeries in quick succession. One of them was a 9-hour surgery in which the doctor chipped off part of my neck. But I never deferred my university semesters. I didn't give any excuses. I showed up. And after avoiding the operating room for 9 years, this May, 5 weeks ago, I was back at the operating room, not being able to walk, not being able to sit or do much. I had my last brain surgery, which is my 8th one, by the way, and I got a cool hairstyle to show for it. When you feel alone or when you're going through something, you're always looking for a latch, someone, something to give you meaning to what your pain is about. Sometimes that can come in the form of a person, someone who encourages you or shows up at the hospital to be with you each and every time. For me, it was my parents and one particular uncle who would leave everything they had and would come to the hospital and stay there right before my surgery and even after. And they would show up each and every day. I appreciate that because personal pain almost makes you feel like you're digging a drain or going down. It's like a quicksand. But when there are people around you, you feel like you can reach out to them and hold on to the little faith that they give you. I have learned that life happens. At whatever point you're in, something can be thrown at you. And the thing is, something with life is that it doesn't give you a memo. Terms and conditions change, and you're never told that they're going to change. So as a child, I was hit. As an adolescent, I was hit. As an adult, I've been hit. I've realized that you cannot predict what life is going to throw at you, but you can be prepared. You can be prepared with courage. And courage could mean that you let go of the expectations you have about your growth, the expectations of how your success is going to be, the expectations of how you will live your life tomorrow. You let it go. But sometimes it means holding on to the things that make you feel alive, to the dreams that you didn't even think were going to be fulfilled. It means showing up. But most importantly, showing up with a basket full of armor or weapons to fight the battle. And for me, that was my mental resources. It was a resilience that I didn't have as a child that taught me that I needed that. It was the patience, the courage, the bravery. And I thought about how many times we are caught in, like a deer in headlights, and how unprepared we are. So I'm here to tell you that it's important to invest in mental resources at any one point of your life. And I implore you, in whichever sphere of life that you have influence in, to start a conversation about that, to train children in schools to think about their self-awareness, so that when life hits them, they're not bruised. They don't pick up the trauma and run with it in silence. Thank you.